bienvenue en Guyane. Dans une petite demi-heure, Ariane devrait quitter le sol de Kourou. Elle emporte avec elle ce soir un seul passager, le satellite Galxy 4R pour le compte de notre client, Panamsat. Nous sommes ici dans la régie de la salle Jupiter. C'est là qu'arrivent toutes les images des caméras qui sont installées au pied du lanceur et dans les différents sites. Pour les commenter ce soir en français, je serai accompagnée de notre spécialiste Gaston Rabot, que je rejoindrai tout à l'heure dans les petites cabines de commentaires en surplomb de la salle Jupiter. Le commentaire en anglais sera assuré ce soir par vous, Josué Jean-Paul. Bonsoir.
Hi Valerie and hi everybody. Welcome to Kourou. Welcome to Kourou, the home of Ariane, for tonight's live broadcast of Ariane Space Flight number 129. We have a solo passenger tonight, a single launch. It's a Galxy 4R for Panamsat and our friends at Hughes. We're due to lift off in about half an hour from right now. We hope you'll stay with us. But before we get underway, take a look at the highlights of the mission tonight, and that'll be coming right up.
Ce soir, nous allons vivre ensemble toutes les étapes de ce vol 129. Je vous propose tout de suite de découvrir le programme de cette soirée.
And among the highlights of this evening's mission you'll be seeing will be a first look at the launcher campaign. We'll look at how the Ariane 42L vehicle is put together for a launch here, then rolled out to the pad at the Guyana Space Center. The satellite, too, has its own campaign, and we'll be going back over those images to see how Galxy 4R was prepared for tonight's launch in the special dedicated satellite buildings. And finally, we'll be hearing from Pete Lowenstein of National Public Radio in the States, a customer of Galxy, to find out how they use the satellite. And welcome back, everybody. We are back up in the broadcast booth in the Jupiter Mission Control, the nerve center here of the Guyana Space Center for flight number 129, Galxy 4R going up tonight. You can see the Ariane 42L launcher waiting on the pad. We are green, we're on time, and we're on target for tonight's launch. The Jupiter building, Jupiter 2, is where we come to you from, traditionally. This is the second mission control building to go up. The original one was retired about 4 years ago. This building went up for the Ariane 5 program. You can see that our cameras are here, but there are other people hard at work on this launch base, and we can't show you everything. We can show you some. What we can show you mainly is where their information comes in, and that's right here on these green status panels summarizing the other services which take place on this very big launch base. And you can see some of the listings up there. There's telemetry, and there's the weather, and there's the satellite people. We'll give you a more detailed rundown in a moment. The Jupiter building is divided into two parts. You have the technical people, these fellows here. On the left, the Ariane Space Chef de Mission, Mission Director, and working with him, the Range Operations Manager. We'll get back to them in just a minute. These are the technical people from Ariane Space and the French Space Agency and the European Space Agency. Behind them you saw the invited guests and the VIPs looking down into the fishbowl. To give you a brief thumbnail portrait of the launcher, before we do, just to clear something up, you might see some flames coming out of the bottom of Ariane. She is not on fire. I wouldn't worry. This is an optical illusion. The flames are about 50 meters behind, so not to worry. To give a little translation, on the top left, Autorisation Lancement is the launch base. We'll get you some vital statistics first, and we'll be back to the greens. The Kourou base, situated on the equator, roughly 5 degrees north. We can launch to the north and to the east. We're going east tonight. Tonight's launch is the 96th Ariane 4, only the 11th of this configuration with the two liquid boosters. The satellite, the 16th Panamsat launched by Ariane, part of the company's expansion plans to grow the fleet. The window, 70 minutes, an hour and 10 minutes. You see the times locally here, and our offices in Washington, and for our friends in Paris. The launcher's trajectory tonight will be followed during the course of the mission by our downrange tracking stations across the Atlantic. This is the CDL, the Launch Management establishment, which is about 14 kilometers to the northwest of where we are, run by this fellow called the COL, the Launch Operations Manager. His team checking out the launch systems and we'll be doing so until liftoff time. We'll be shuttling back and forth there. That's where our other cameras are. You can see some of the other activity going on the base. Just a word before we move on the window. In case we have to launch tomorrow or the day after, the opening of the window will move up 1 minute and remain the same at the closing of the window for the next 3 days. So we are in pretty good shape. You see everything is green. The other services send their information in here, and the greens summarize a go or a no-go, and they come into these two fellows here, Didier Casset's Ariane Space fellow, mission director, working in tandem with this fellow here, Pierre Bardière, who's the range operations manager, also called the DDO. You will hear Pierre call out some of the milestones in the final countdown today at the 1 minute mark and the 6 minute mark, and some others. These shots were taken earlier today, about 5 hours and 50 minutes ago. This is the gantry withdrawal, the gantry being the servicing tower, which houses and protects the launcher from the elements. You see what the weather was like earlier today. We are still go for clear skies and a full moon. The gantry withdrawal, one of the final major operations to take place, takes place pretty close to launch time. As you can see, keeping the launcher away from the elements, the heat and the wind. Pierre Bardière, we mentioned, is the DDO. He's the dean of the DDOs. This is his 27th launch. There are the fellows from PanAmSat and Hughes, our customers tonight. With his back to you, I believe it's Phil Rubin. We'll get back to them. Ariane on the pad, waiting. We're using the 42L version. You can see the two liquid boosters on the bottom of the launcher. We're launching from what we call the ELA-2, which is the second launch base. The first one retired in 1991. We'll be back to Ariane. Before we move on, take a look at the latest page now from the Ariane News Bulletin. Ariane 5's second commercial flight was a big success, also two big firsts. With Flight 128, the European heavy launcher put 2 satellites in orbit and also blasted off in its first ever night flight. Meanwhile, the ARTA program busily testing and verifying all the boosters for the Ariane 5. This program, led by the European Space Agency, is due to run its next test in the upcoming days here in French Guiana. Okay, we want to add a couple of things to that news bulletin. 2 new contracts signed by Ariane. One of them signed today. Both of them with our friends in Japan. Today in Tokyo, signing with a faithful customer, the JCSat people, for launch of JCSat 8 to go up on an Ariane 4 or 5 at the end of next year or early 02. This is the flight director at the Ariane people. On the left is Jacques Rossignol, the COO, and to his left is Ed Perez, the director of the industrial director, and Jean-Marcel Agasse on his left, the operations director. The other, a traditional satellite, the JCSat, the other contract, a more access to space for everyone sort of a market, the signing of LD-REX, an auxiliary. Nice shot of the launcher there. You can see the fairing. Inside the fairing, the payload there. We're going to go now to a little more on the Ariane Space Company. You can give you a look inside the corporation.
Versatile, flexible, powerful.
Attention pour le début de la séquence synchronisée, top moins 7 minutes. Donc les H0 moins 3 minutes, correct.
Déroulement correct.
À tous, du DDO, attention pour le décompte final. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, top. Allumage Vulcain. Allumage ERP. Décollage. Propulsion normale. Tous les paramètres sont normaux à bord. Trajectoire normale.
All okay on board.
Ready to serve your business.
Yeah, ready to serve your business. We've been serving business now with 54 straight successes with the Ariane 4 launcher going back to 1995 without a hitch. Since the beginning of service in 1979 was the first Ariane flight. The family has put up 202 satellites into orbit, 168 main passengers, and 34 auxiliary passengers. The company had a birthday, 26th of March, almost a month ago. 1980, the company was formed, so we celebrated our 20th. Originally, when Arianespace was formed, the mission was production and marketing and operations of the launches. We had some political help from the European Space Agency and the member nations, a dozen or so of them roughly, and some industrial help with the French Space Agency, CNES, and our industrial partners. And 20 years later, #1 worldwide, over half the market share. Reputation second to none. We have some shots of the launcher campaign for you now, and then we'll get to the satellite campaign after that.
Ariane parts are delivered by boat at Kourou Harbor, and from there they are taken by road to the launch site. Flight 129 launch campaign started 5 weeks ago on Tuesday the 14th of March with the erection of the first stage. Here is the preparation area where all the assembly tower gateways have been lifted up in order to enable the positioning of the stage and its integration at the launch table. On the second day of the campaign, the erection of the second stage takes place. The first and second stages and the strap-on boosters are fitted with the same Viking motors. But the second stage motor nozzle is longer since it operates mainly in vacuum, whereas the others work in the atmosphere. When the second stage is bolted in the first one, the liquid strap-on boosters are erected and latched on both sides of the first stage. Then, the third stage is integrated on the second one. The plate of the equipment bay is hoisted to the top of the third stage. The electronic control equipments of the launcher are positioned on that plate, which is, in a way, the brain of the launcher. After 14 days of preparation, the launcher is transferred to the launch pad 1 kilometer away. There, it is connected to the ground facilities, and the final preparations will take 9 days, up to the final countdown.
Back up in the CDL, the launch management crew are continuing to check the last-minute verifications and confirmations of all the systems on the launch vehicle. You saw in the clip there the truck pulling the launch vehicle out. An interesting sidelight. There are 20 drivers here on the base of the CSG. Only 4 are allowed to do that. They have to have gone through 5 campaigns a minimum, and they have to be trained for a year and a half to do that. There's Doug Kahn, President and CEO of the customer tonight. Doug Kahn, I remember him saying, this organization talking about Ariane Space knows what it's doing and does it right, and that's why we keep coming back. And they have been coming back because this is the 4th Hughes satellite launch in 4 months and 3rd in as many months for Pan Am Sat. There was the Galaxy XR one up in February, Flight 126, and Galaxy 11, Flight 124 went up just at the end of last year, and there's Pass 1R set for later on in the year. And some of these crews have been coming down here for all of those launches, and I think some spent the millennium here over the end of last year. Old friends tonight. Pan Am Sat and Ariane and Hughes go back 12 years. We have a little more on the company now, so take a look at their customer film.
The airwaves are alive with intelligent connections that encircle our planet. Soon, Pan Am Sat will have the largest geosynchronous satellite system in orbit, and customers the world over will be wired into the future as never before in history. The 1950s, so different in television terms that it may as well be the Stone Age. Today, television is being reborn as Pan Am Sat satellites beam down the images and sounds of countless worlds to hundreds of millions of people in over 70 countries. Satellite communications are transforming the way business serves the needs of its customers. The fast pace of business and everyday commerce, such as rapid approval of credit card purchases at the gas pump, depend on satellite communication at extraordinary speeds. Global businesses are awash in a sea of information. Pan Am Sat is helping to make infinite amounts of knowledge instantly available and enabling businesses, industries, and individuals to zero in on the data they need. No recent technology has transformed more lives and more businesses than the Internet. Pan Am Sat satellites are creating distribution networks, driving the exchange of information, entertainment, and services from one-to-one to one-to-many. Satellites are driving the process of convergence, creating a world in which we shop, invest, interact, and are entertained through a screen that is linked by a satellite. The men and women of Pan Am Sat are working around the clock helping to shape this world, bringing to many information and entertainment that once seemed available for the few, and making extraordinary possibilities a reality.
While you were watching that film on the company, we had the last weather check. It's the minus 10-minute weather check. We're still waiting for the report to come through to us. As soon as we get it, we will, of course, pass it along to you. The weather last week, you can sum up in one word, and the word is rain. We had a record rain last week. Had we been trying to launch last week, I don't think we'd got this far. To give you an idea of some of the numbers we had, we're in the rainy season now. April and May is a rainy season in French Guiana. What there is exactly is sort of a major executive rainy season, which is now, and there's also a minor auxiliary rainy season if the first one isn't enough for you. But this is April and May are the rainiest months, and the average rainfall in the rainy season in April is 373.70 millimeters. In May, it's 500, which is the rainiest month, as I said. The record in French Guiana, ever since they've been keeping records, is 800 millimeters in a month. And in the last 15 days here, already we had fallen 800 millimeters of rain. So we're well on the way to pulverizing that score. We're going to go now to the satellite campaign narrated by Brian Benedict of PanAmSat.
The Galaxy 4 spacecraft arrived at KN Rochambeau Airport 3 weeks ago on the evening of March 27th. During the night, it was transferred and unpacked in building S3B in order to start the fit check with the Ariane flight adapter early the following morning. Propellant filling operations were conducted on April 5th and 7th. Operators are protected during these hazardous operations by use of escape suit. Combined operations started on D-7 with the final installation of the Galaxy 4 spacecraft on the Ariane flight adapter and by mating onto the VEB external cone. Encapsulation was performed at D-6 prior to moving the upper composite to the launch pad. Rollout of the composite was performed during the evening of D-5. Early the following morning, the Galaxy 4R upper composite was finally mated to the top of the launch vehicle.
CDL again, everything is going according to plan up there at the launch base, closer to the pad. We had our 10-minute weather check come in finally, and we are go. We are go for the weather. Full moon, clear skies. There were some earlier reports of a minor storm moving this way from the east, which may or may not have threatened to hold us up for 10 to 15 minutes in the countdown, but apparently that was exaggerated. And we are go now, as you can see, Meteo on the bottom of your screen on the left. Meteo is the weather, and that's green. Of course, if the weather people had found something that they were unhappy with, they would have thrown a red up there, or Pierre or Baldir on the right of your screen would have thrown a red, and we would have a hold in the countdown. But we have no hold in the countdown. We're moving along. You can see, I don't know if you can find French Guiana on there. If you can find South America, you see the blue spot with the yellow right in the middle. That's, I think, these clouds they were talking about. Kourou is right around there somewhere. But in any case, we're fine.
À tous de l'EDO, attention pour le début de la séquence synchronisée de lancement. Top, moins 6 minutes.
All right, Pierre Forbardier has just called out the 6-minute mark. This is an important milestone because we are now moving into what we call the synchronized sequence, or the automatic sequence, if you prefer. What's happening is the computers are taking over all the checkouts and all the verifications and the controls of all the systems. Power is passing from the ground to the launcher's own onboard systems. PanAmSat and the Galaxy people, Brian Benedict in the flowered shirt, Phil Rubin in the blue shirt. Phil Rubin you'll probably see later. A very quick thumbnail sketch of the launcher, which we haven't given you. Between 54 and 58 meters tall, Ariane. 3 powered stages, the first 2 with storable propellant. The third stage is the cryogenic stage. We'll get back to that description in a minute, but first we're going to go to National Public Radio.
I'm Pete Lowenstein. I'm the Vice President for Distribution at National Public Radio. And National Public Radio is probably best known for its award-winning programming, its news and information programming, and its cultural programming, which is heard by millions of Americans every day throughout the country. And what may be not so well known is that National Public Radio also operates and manages the public radio satellite system, which it uses itself, and which it also provides services to hundreds of other public radio program distributors and 700 plus public radio stations throughout the country who are interconnected to this common resource. Launch is a very important one for National Public Radio and for all of the public radio system in the United States. Actually, public radio was the first national use of satellite technology for radio distribution back in the 70s. To have a spot like 99 degrees, which is where we've operated since the system began in '79, to have a 99-degree orbital location that sees all those spots with really reliable and robust service is an important continuation of the services we've provided up to now. So we're thrilled to be on the Galaxy 4R and look forward to a great 10-year run with this new capacity.
There you have the customers point of view, Pete Lowenstein interviewed in his office in Washington. You see we're still green and go for the launch. Just to finish up the thumbnail, we have the 10 tons of cryogenic fuel in the third stage. On top of the third stage is what we call the vehicle equipment bay, where the computers are. And on top of that is the fairing, which is the salt shaker-like white element you see. And inside the fairing is the payload. Now, to get back to the computers, we're still in the automatic sequence, coming up on 3 minutes, halfway into it. The two computers that are checking everything out now are located in the CDL. You saw them when you went up there, and you'll see them again. They check out the electrical systems, the electronic systems, and the fluid systems. There are two computers, one for electrics and one for the fluids. Checking out all the vital signs for the mission's Rob Benderek, mission director for Panosat. All of the mission's safety and support systems being checked out now. We want to take a look at this shot. This is the last picture that you're going to see, and I just want to take a minute and go over it. This is a split-screen image now. The cryotechnic arms, or the propellant feeder arms, you see on one side the hydrogen coming in on the other, the oxygen. These arms are going into the third stage being filled almost up until the moment of launch, because it's a very cold fluid and there's a lot of evaporation and things keep boiling off. These arms have to swing open for Ariane to leave the pad, and you will see those arms swing open. You see them right there on your screen. They will swing back, and then we can go. If they don't swing open, then we don't go anywhere. So make sure that they swing open. These computers now are checking out the, as we said, the fluids and the 1,001 things that are that make a launch a very complex affair. Ariane Space, and of course everyone here wanting to get it right. What are the computers checking out? Well, authorizing final arming of the more hazardous units, like the pyrotechnic explosive cords, which are used to separate the stages, and you'll see that coming up. You hear the DDO call out the 1 minute mark in just a minute. The computer is also loading the exact ignition time.
Attention pour H moins 1 minute du décompte. Top, moins 1 minute et décompte.
All right, we're into the last 60 seconds of the final countdown now. The computer also loading the exact ignition time, as I mentioned, into the onboard computer. If we have a hold, if there's anything wrong, the clock is set back to the 6 minute mark. We begin the sequence, automatic sequence, all over again. The ignition sequence, these same computers are going to check out the ignition sequence and the motors before we can go off. At H0, you'll see the motors ignited. You'll hear Pierre Bardier say feu ignition on the two boosters, and the 4 engines. And then the computers will check out the pressure to make sure everything is all right. Then Ariane will lift off at plus 4.4 seconds, not before.
À tous de l'EDO. Attention pour le décompte final. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, unité, feu. Allumage. Décollage. Tous les paramètres bord sont normaux. Tous les paramètres bord sont normaux.
All right, you can see the 6 points of light. Those are the 4 engines in the middle, the main engines of the 2 boosters on the outside. Lovely shots of Ariane rising up into the night sky. The toucan at the bottom of your screen is the observation site, where some of the lucky VIPs are. Ariane going up 1 minute into the launch now. After 1 more minute and 2 minutes, she will have reached the speed of sound. You saw perhaps on liftoff when she cleared this tower, some pieces of the launcher look like they were falling away. This is some thermal cladding, which is quite normal off of the second stage. Launcher rising in the sky now. She weighs about...
Tous les paramètres bord sont normaux.
Everything normal, says the DDO. The launcher weighs about 1 million pounds. at liftoff. The 4 Viking 5 engines are burning roughly 2 tons of fuel per second. The boosters, another 40 tons, giving Ariane the speed she needs to get off the ground. You see on the cursor on your bottom of the left-hand trajectory, and everything is normal. You see the cursor climbing up the screen now. We're going to get you a little more detailed shot of that in just a moment. You can see the fine points of light. We should be able to see the boosters separate because the night is very clear. You should see them fall away after roughly a minute of service. There it looks like
Extinction des propulseurs d'appoint et ergols liquides.
Wonderful
Largage des pales.
Clear shots of the burnout of the 2 boosters, and you saw them being jettisoned. So Ariane now flying on the power of the first stage, which will burn for 3 minutes, and then the first stage, like the boosters, will be dropped into the Atlantic.
Tous les paramètres bord sont normaux.
We're doing fine. On the bottom right of your screen, some numbers. On the very bottom, V is the speed. You can see kilometers per second. The A above that is the altitude.
Les paramètres bord sont normaux et la trajectoire est normale.
The A is the altitude. You can see where we are going. The S is the degree of the slant being tracked. The moyenne is the means. That's the computer. On that's tracking area. And you see the cursor on the left climbing up to SEP 1-2. That's separation of the first and second stage.
Extinction du premier étage.
First stage burnout.
Séparation du premier étage. Allumage du deuxième étage.
All right. DDO has just called out extinction of the first stage. This is to give you an idea of what happens up there. Jettison of the first stage. And
tous les paramètres bord sont normaux et la trajectoire est normale.
In that order, the second stage begins to burn. Second stage burning 1 engine, 1 Viking 6 engine, will burn another 2 minutes, taking Ariane roughly about 165 kilometers up. You see on the left again, on the bottom under Pierre Baudet, the cursor climbing up to SEP Coif. That is separation of the fairing, which is coming up. The Panamsat boys watching the screens just like the rest of us. The Hughes people watching the screen just like the rest of us.
Les paramètres bord sont normaux et la trajectoire est normale. Largage de la coiffe.
And there's the fairing jettison, called out by our DDO. The fairing is jettisoned now. We're about 100 and some kilometers up because since satellites were made to work in space, not on the Earth with Earth elements and Earth condition, the fairing can protect them from these sort of elements. You see where we are 129 kilometers up now.
Tous les paramètres bord sont normaux et la trajectoire est normale.
This is avoiding what we call payload pollution. It also allows us to drop about 700 kilometers of excess weight. Ariane speed now, as you can see on the bottom there, coming up on 4 kilometers per second. That's almost half of what we need for a satellite separation. What we need is about 10 kilometers per second. And we get that at the end of the third stage burn. Cursor climbing up now to SEP 2-3. That'll be the separation of the second and the third stages. And then we'll move into the third stage burn. Everything going according to plan with plus into 5 minutes into the launch, into the liftoff.
Extinction du deuxième étage.
Second stage burnout.
Séparation du deuxième étage.
Second stage jettison.
Allumage du troisième étage.
And the ignition of the third stage, called out by Pierre Bardier, our DDO. Third stage will burn a long time compared to the other stages, roughly.
Les paramètres bord sont normaux et la trajectoire est normale.
Everything is normal up there. Third stage going to burn about 13 minutes. We're burning 10 tons of cryogenic fuel. This is liquid hydrogen and oxygen. This sort of mix was used for the very first time outside of the U.S. by Ariane's very first flight on Christmas Eve 1979.
Acquisition de la télémesure lanceur par la station de Natal au Brésil.
All right, we've just been picked up, the signal from the launcher has just been picked up by our first downrange tracking station over the border here in Brazil at Natal. We have a European Space Agency facility there. The 3 or 4 stations across the Atlantic will be tracking the launcher as she makes her way across. Take about 15 minutes, roughly. Third stage burning, like we said, about 13 minutes in all. And during that time, we have a little...
Les paramètres bord sont normaux et la trajectoire est normale.
We have a little bit of room to spread out. We can talk about the satellite. We can talk about the builder. We can talk about the launch vehicle also. We can also move into our traditional Ariane space quiz, which I think we should do right now while we're waiting for the third stage burn. Those of you who follow the broadcast know that when the third stage begins, we like to move into a special quiz. And tonight's question, we're going to give you a chance to exercise your knowledge of the Kourou site. Question tonight about the launch base here.
Les paramètres bord sont normaux et la trajectoire est normale.
Ariane Space Quiz question number 129 is, you know, the Kourou site here was chosen for many reasons. There are many reasons that make it special and a good place to launch. Now, I have in my book 6 reasons why Kourou is a good place to launch satellites from. If you can come up with any 3 of those, shouldn't be too hard, 3 out of 6, you will win a very big prize, I guarantee. So, take a minute and repeat the question.
Les paramètres bord sont normaux et la trajectoire est normale.
Ariane Space Quiz number 129. Give me 3 of the 6 reasons that we have, which has made the Kourou site a good place to launch. We'll give you the answer coming up. In the meantime, we'll move to, that's the Ariane Space Flight Director again, Jacques Rossignol, and Doug Kahn of PanamSat. We are at almost 6 kilometers per second, and we're, as you can see, coming up on 265 kilometers altitude. Almost 9 minutes into the flight. Christophe Bardot, who is Ariane Space, what we call the RCUA, the customer liaison. With him was Art Rosales, the VP and General Manager at Hughes. This is his, I think, 12th time down here. He told me he came here first for Flight 15. It was a while ago. Ariane, as we mentioned, has been working in service for 20 years, and during that time have a lot of history being made. April has been a good month, and there's some milestones in April that we just want to pass along to you.
Tous les paramètres bord sont normaux et la trajectoire est normale.
Everything is normal. We're coming up on 10 minutes. The third stage is going to burn till roughly plus 18 and a half minutes. Flight 50 on April 15th in 1992 sent up a telecom in Inmarsat. You're looking at Rob Benark.
Perte normale par les moyens de Kourou.
And Christophe Bardou of Ariane Space, Rob Benark of PanamSat. We just lost, which is quite normal, the signal from the first tracking station in Kourou. We're being tracked by Natal now. On April 28th, we had our 100th success. At the time it was 36 straight, and the 100th solid booster. Sending up a BSAT, that was a Hughes-built one. That was a Flight 108 in 1998.
Tous les paramètres bord sont normaux et la trajectoire est normale.
The 50th telecom sat went up on April 4th. That was the first 44P Flight 43 in 1991. The very last Ariane 2 went up in April 2nd. That was the Swedish Space Corporation Telex, 1989. So you see April, another Hughes built, the BSAT 1A, on April 16th, went up with the TICOM. That was Flight 95 in 1997. 11.5 minutes into the flight, Ariane space flight number 129. The passenger tonight, if you just joined us, Galxy
Tous les
4R.
paramètres bord sont normaux et la trajectoire est normale.
And everything is proceeding as normal, nominally, as they say it, at coming up on almost 7 kilometers per second. Now you see the cursor climbing up on the left to a point that is EXTH10. That will be the extinction of the third stage also known as the H10. They have 2 or 3 different names. Brian Benedict in the white hat here. And then you see higher up on the line there is Galxy 4R. That'll be the separation of the satellite. Should happen at about plus 20 minutes.
Acquisition de la télémesure lanceur par la station de l'île d'Ascension.
All right, we've been picked up by the second downrange station, which is the Ascension Island station in the middle of the Atlantic. That was an old, was a NASA station, and NASA pulled out, and European Space Agency set up some facilities there, out in the middle of the Atlantic.
Tous les paramètres bord sont normaux et la trajectoire est normale.
We're still doing fine up there. We want to just take a quick look at the Ariane 42L version that we're using tonight. We mentioned it's the 96th Ariane 4, but only the 11th time we're using this particular configuration with the 2 liquid boosters. 11 of those, 6 of those 11, more than half built by Hughes, as a matter of fact. The last one was Flight 126, was a Galxy 10R, went up the first flight of the year at the end of January. Hughes built, of course. Flight 115 and 114, December, both of those in December.
Il reste 5 minutes de propulsion.
5 minutes left in the third stage, says the DDO. That was past 6B and Saturn X, both built by Hughes. They went up in December of 1998. Flight 104 was an Intelsat. Flight 100 also was an Intelsat. Flight 79, all these are 42Ls now. Flight 79 an Astra, Hughes built. Flight 78, a Telstar. Flight 76.
Perte normale par la station télémesure de Natal.
We've just lost the signal quite normal from the Natal tracking station. We're being followed now only by the Ascension Island radar and telemetry system. Panamsat 4 went up in 1995. That was Hughes built on an Ariane 42L. Then Flight 67 was a Telstar, and Flight 56 was the very first 42L in 1993, an Astra 1C, which was, of course, built by Hughes. So 6 of those 42Ls, those 11 42Ls built by tonight's manufacturer, the Hughes people, HSC.
Il reste 4 minutes de propulsion.
4 minutes left into the third stage burn, as a Galxy 4R waiting patiently up there to be delivered into its orbit. You'll see XH10 on the cursor. That'll be the moment of the third stage burnout, and then we have roughly 2 minutes until the satellite separation. Galxy 4 is going to replace Galxy 11, which is going to be moved to a new mission. Has a lot of flexibility. Brian Benedict was telling us this afternoon that many reflectors for use outside of its main slot, which means it can range a very wide range from 43 to 127 degrees, I believe.
Il reste 3 minutes de propulsion.
3 minutes left in the third stage burn. This satellite, part of the fleet buildup for the company, continuing big expansion plan that's going to grow the fleet to about 25 by the middle of next year. Panamsat come a long way with Ariane as well, and an old customer, founded in 1984, if you remember, by Rene Anselmo, as sort of an alternative to the then monopoly, and the became the world's first private sector company to provide global service with the launch of Pass4, which went over the Indian Ocean, so that covered the globe. The merger with Hughes in 1996, and then Doug Kahn coming aboard last year as CEO.
Il reste 2 minutes de propulsion. Tous les paramètres bord sont normaux et la trajectoire est normale.
We have 2 minutes left in this very long third stage burn, and everything is quite normal. How are you doing on your quiz? The Kourou site chosen for six reasons that we have. If you get any 3 of the following 6, you give me a call up here at 35862, and I'll have a prize for you. Why was Kourou chosen? Number 1 reason, very large opening over water. Now that's important because that means we can go to the north and to the east. We're going east tonight, as you know. Reason number 2, nearness to the equator, which is important because we can get up quickly into space, which means the satellites don't waste a lot of fuel and they have longer life. Reason number 3.
Il reste 1 minute de propulsion.
1 minute left in third stage burn. I'll finish with this rapidly. Reason number 3, low population density. 170,000 people living in French Guiana. So there's not much danger of them getting in the way. Reasons number 4 and 5, no hurricanes.
Acquisition de la télémesure lanceur par la station de Libreville au Gabon.
I've been picked up by our final tracking station, which is in Libreville in Gabon.
Il reste 30 secondes de propulsion.
On the west coast of Africa. That's the final tracking station, which will be following during our broadcast. Reason number 4, no hurricanes. Reason number 5, no earthquakes. And reason number 6...
Encore 20 secondes.
Reason number 6, installation of radar and telemetry in surrounding hills. So if you get any of 3 of those, folks, give me a call up here and I'll give you a check, my personal check, for $1.29. Congratulations to all of you who got 3 of those answers.
Extinction du 3e étage.
There is the end of the third stage burn.
Début de la manœuvre d'orientation du composite.
And now we have begun what we call the SCAR maneuver and the various spins and despins to move what's left of the launch vehicle, which began, as you remember, with 1 million pounds, and what's left up there is the satellite and the adapters. And they're moving into position to optimize
Perte normale des moyens d'ascension.
Optimize the separation moment coming up. Almost 20 minutes into launch, the third stage has been burned out. We're waiting for separation, as you can see, climbing up on the curve there, Galaxy 4. That'll be the moment of separation in roughly a minute. The west coast of Africa, the Libreville station, by the way, is the last one to track Ariane during our broadcast. A new CNES station was added in Kenya, at Malindi, to be exact, but that's for the Ariane 5 program, which we're not using tonight. We're waiting for satellite separation. Should be coming up shortly.
La phase d'orientation se poursuit normalement.
The orientation sequence
Fin de la manœuvre d'orientation.
has just been concluded. This concerns spinning and despinning to get
Début de mise en rotation du composite.
spinning and despinning of the what we call the composite. Preparation for separation.
Séparation Galaxy 4R.
And there is the good news of the separation of tonight's passenger. Now you see in the center of your screen Phil Rubin preparing for his striptease. What's he got tonight? He always has a custom t-shirt New and better than ever, Pan Am Sat. For all the folks at home. Thank you, Phil. So we have had separation of tonight's passenger, a successful launch by Ariane, which makes 55 in a row for Ariane 4. You can see the congratulations and the smiles and the happy faces. The cigars and the champagne will be forthcoming, I can assure you. We're waiting for, we'll have speeches from the people from Ariane Space, probably Jacques Rossignol, the Chief Operating Officer. And Doug Kahn, of course, will say something. And Arturo Rosales, I think, should also be making his way to the mic. He'll say a few words there, the cigars. So while we wait for those gentlemen to make their way towards the podium, we can fill you in on the in-flight operations now that the Galxy 4 is up. Here's what's going to be happening with it in the next couple of weeks. The first acquisition is going to be in about 16 minutes from now, 16 minutes after separation, or 37 minutes after liftoff. That will be from an Indonesian station, and forgive me if I pronounce this wrong, at Dan Mago. The liquid apogee motor burns will take place for roughly a period of a week, 6 days, 1 week of orbit raising from the 20th to the 26th of April, starting the day after tomorrow. They are planning roughly 3 days for deployment of all the panels and reflectors, and they will begin testing. We're going to go to a replay from Tucson in just a minute. You can watch the launch liftoff again. They're going to start their testing at the end of the month until the end of May, so roughly 1 month of in-orbit testing. And the satellite should begin service at the end of June, we're told. So Galxy 4 taking over for the summer for its customers. We're waiting for Doug Kahn, you see in the blue shirt on your right. He'll be speaking. And Jacques Rossignol and Art Rosales from Hughes. So those gentlemen looking quite happy. Of course, Ariane delivering once again. High fives. The Ariane present now on a couple of new markets, which we'd also like to mention before we get to the replay, or maybe we'll do it after the replay. Yeah, the replay is coming up right after the replay from Tucson, which is a camera closer to the pad. We'll give you some market news, but first we're going to go to a replay of tonight's launch, so you can relive those fine moments and those fine shots of the that we had of the launcher rising into the night sky. And we saw the six points of light. Here's a replay for you coming up.
Décollage. Tous les paramètres bord sont normaux.
Those shots from the Tucson observation site, which I believe is roughly 1 or 2 kilometers from the pad, and that's the closest that our cameras can get. Always very impressive shots. We have cameras at some other observation sites, because there's half a dozen of them along the base. And if we get any other film footage from any of those spots, because they all are almost as spectacular, not quite, but we will certainly pass them along to you. We're still waiting for Jacques Rossignol and Art Rosales and Doug Kahn to make their way to the microphone. While we're waiting, we may have a second replay coming up. We did want to fill you in on some of the market news. Started to mention Ariane present now in two new fronts, in two new markets. The internet market, with the signing with the U.S. group iSky, I as in internet. All right, here we're going to a slow motion replay.
Allumage. Décollage. Tous les paramètres bord sont normaux.
Jacques Rossignol to say the first words after tonight's successful launch.
Making the replay.
Jacques Rossignol, whenever you're ready.
Okay, good evening. It's no point to introduce Doug Lascan, the chairman of PanAmSat, because he knows this place as well as many of us. He was here in December 21st for Galaxy 11, 22nd, January 21st for Galaxy 10, and today for Galaxy 4R. So he has been attending 3 launches in 4 months for PanAmSat. So he knows the place so well and the people so well that he was talking with everybody instead of coming here right away, which means that he's fully integrated in the Arianespace team now.
Thank you.
The relationship between Arianespace and PanAmSat is a long love story. PanAmSat used the first Ariane 4 in 1988, which means that now in 12 years we have launched 16 PanAmSat satellites. And Doug, you have seen the dedication of the people by visiting the facilities. We are all very proud to help your company to grow and to grow fast. We are ready to continue that, you know, as soon as you need us, we will be ready to help you more. We'll use reliability we have now built up in Ariane 4 and Ariane 5. That's a 54th success in a row, which means no failure in almost 6 years now on Ariane 4. And I guess that's why our customer give us their valuable object to put in orbit. So, Doug, we are extremely pleased to keep going our cooperation.
And we are also very pleased. This has been a wonderful day. It's nice to be back for another successful launch. On behalf of everyone at PanAmSat and our customers, I want to thank you and everyone here at Arianespace for an outstanding liftoff. And we know now that we will spend the next 6 weeks flying the Galxy 4R satellite. And then we expect to put this satellite into service in early June. So it's great to be back. This is the 3rd launch in 5 months. And indeed, we will return again this summer for the launch of the PAS-1R satellite. And we will be back because we know we can count on Arianespace for another successful launch. And so, Jacques, thank you very much. I must say, I knew we would have a good launch. I didn't know that Arianespace could also control the weather. So we're pleased that you also made for no rain and a wonderful evening so everyone could see the wonderful launch tonight. Jacques, thank you. We're very, very pleased to be here. And that's a gift for you. Yes, a big gift.
You want to see?
Sure.
as they exchange gifts, I just wanted to say a few words of congratulations first to our customer. I'm Art Rosales from Hughes. This is a very momentous occasion, as they all are for the launches. Pan Amset's our biggest customer. We wish you great success. We look forward to being a future supplier to your needs. We are very proud of the long relationship that we've had and the little bit of the role that we've played in your success to date. We look forward to the future.
A very big role. And we do too.
And Jacques, I want to thank you for another success.
Pour un autre lancement qui a bien réussi.
1983 of many visits. It's always a pleasure to come here. I look forward to coming here several more times this year for more successes. So thank you. And to the Pan Am Sat and Hughes team, I want to thank them for all the work they did behind the scenes to get ready for this launch. And as Doug mentioned, there's a team of Hughes and Pan Am Sat engineers in El Segundo that are very busy now flying this spacecraft to its final position. Thank you.
Deux mots sur notre futur.
Two words regarding the future. I am happy to announce that Jean-Marie Luton, who is in Tokyo today, signed 2 new contracts for Ariane Espace, GSAT and Eleoxa. So now our backlog is quite full, and we are very proud of it. Now, as to the next launch, some satellites have had some problems, which means that though these problems have now been identified and are now being settled, it is not possible for us today to set a clear date to resume our flights. And we don't even know whether we will launch an Ariane 4 or Ariane 5 when we resume our flights. We are at Ariane Espace, ready to receive the satellites. I guess we will be able to fly if the plans we have are accurate and true. Then we will resume our flights by the end of June, beginning of July. That's all I can say today, unfortunately. But don't worry, we are totally ready to resume our launches. We intend to launch 5 Ariane 5 this year and 7 or 8 Ariane 4 this year. This type of, let's say, stop in the flight has already occurred in the past. It occurred last year and the year before, and the interruptions were longer. I think that now we're quite used to this, and we have hiccups like this, but we are very flexible at CNES and at Ariane Espace, and I wish to thank them again for their efficiency and their flexibility. So thank you and have a good night.
Eh bien, je vous donne rendez-vous en bas pour prendre le pot de l'amitié.
So after those words, you had Jacques Rossignol mentioning the long love story, as he put it, between Pan Am Sat and Arianespace. I think we're going to have a final replay, and then we'll be back to say goodbye.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, unité, feu. Allumage. Décollage. Tous les paramètres bord sont normaux.
So we will leave you with those fine shots of the launch tonight of Arianespace flight number 129 as the European launcher Ariane 4 delivers again a solo passenger tonight. That's 55 straight for Ariane 4, 100 69 satellites in all. Of the 113 satellites built by North Americans, Hughes, the lion's share, almost half of those with 43. So a big night for them. Congratulations to them, and a big night, of course, for the PanAmSat people and for Ariane. The 16th PanAmSat and the 37th Hughes-built satellite. We can't set a next date, a firm date, as Jacques Rossignol said, for the next launch, but it will be this summer. But after tonight's exceptional launch, no holds in the countdown, and lovely pictures of the liftoff, we look forward to being with you next time. This is Joshua Jampel on behalf of everyone here in the Space Center, saying thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed the show, and we will be with you for the next launch. Goodbye, everybody.